So it's quite a hiatus.
All right. Good afternoon, ARB. We are live and recording. You're good to go.
Thank you very much, LTV. Welcome to the February 9th, 2023 Architectural Review Board meeting for the town of East Hampton. My name is Kathleen Cunningham. It's my privilege to chair this board. Welcome you all. Thanks for coming. As I have been doing in the past, I'm going to read a little bit from the standards and criteria that guide this board and its deliberations. And I'm reading from the general standards, which is maintenance of character. In accordance with the purposes set forth in section 255.710 above, the Architectural Review Board is charged with maintaining the desirable character of the town and with disapproving the construction, reconstruction, alteration or repositioning of buildings or structures which are designed without consideration of the harmonious relation of the new or altered structure to such structures as already exist and or to the setting and physical environment into which such structures are to be placed, ensuring compliance with existing applicable scenic, agricultural, and conservation easements or purchase of development rights agreements in, upon, or adjacent to the premises as to which the town, a conservation organization, or a homeowners association is a grantee or party. And then just further to that, we are charged with the assurance of harmony. These are all aesthetic, sort of subjective concepts, but they're listed in the code specifically. The review board is further charged with exercising sound judgment and with rejection of plans which, in its opinion, based on study and advice, are not of harmonious character because of proposed style, scale, materials, mass, line, color, detail, or placement upon the property of proposed buildings or structures, or in relation to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of the landscape, or because of lack of provisions for balance between the proposed location and design of structures and adjacent open areas or adjacent existing structures, whether on or off the lot or site in question. Okay, there's a bunch of other stuff there, but I always find that anchors me when I come before the public to do this important work for our community. So the first order of business would be the approval of the minutes from January 26, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's passed and carried. Thank you very much. Okay, our first application, Montauk Beach House LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-49-4-52.7 has been postponed until next week. So we're going to jump right into number 2, David McGarva, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-118-1-63. I see Mr. McGarva here. Welcome. How are you today? Good. Thanks so much for your submission. This is my application, so I'll be circulating these samples. And there's one other thing. Oh, no, all three. So this is what was submitted to us. As you may recall, Mr. McGarva came before us a couple of weeks ago for approval for a barn. He's in a commercial, your land is commercially zoned, which is a whole other thing, but anyway, and we needed him to submit new plans that depicted the lighting fixtures on the elevations, which he has done, and he submitted cut sheets with the lighting fixtures depicted on the elevations. Did I just say that? I think I did. Anyway, and also made some further details on the plans so that we can have a better an easier read of what we proposed. So, sorry. Trouble with these plans, they're just really big. Okay, so here are the light fixtures. And this gives us the information. It was on the other one, but it was a little hard to read.
Of the materials?
Yes, the materials, yep. So I can just pass these to you all. I don't feel the need to read everything out, but we'll include that in the resolution. It's basically the same, everything is the same size. This was just really administrative because the submission had been had come in pieces, I think, and I was lacking, particularly the depiction of the light fixtures on the elevations. Did I get it pretty well?
Yep.
Okay. Did you have anything you'd like to add?
No, that's basically it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just let our board members take a look. This is the proposed lighting fixture. And did you see that?
Materials.
Yeah.
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 Block.
Yeah, right. Pretty typical.
Mhm.
And I,
And you decided on the glass for the,
Yeah, except that matches the one that's over the pool house. So but there's no light in it.
yeah, but you were uncertain, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
and-
and it's on the plans now.
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
That's fine. The only question I have is this a printing error that this like gingerbread is shown as black? Maybe it's
Yeah, I
the
was
print.
looking
On the-
at those.
It's on the bottom
braces?
one to the right there, or
Yeah.
the next
on the next
elevation has a.
Is it just a printing error?
There,
Oh, yeah, that's not black. No.
okay.
That they're all white, I
Yeah,
presume, like the
yeah.
trim.
Yes.
So, does anybody else have any other questions?
Nope. Not really.
Okay. All right, I think we've got what we need here. I'd like to propose that we approve this submission as submitted, proposed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good to go.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
Just
you.
one question. I know that the planning board needs a memo from you guys
The planning board needs a memo.
stating that it has been approved.
I can take care of that first.
Okay,
Great. So then I'll go in next week sometime and talk to them about the next step. Okay, thank you very much.
because
I
you need
appreciate
site plan approval for this?
it. They just wanted me to get it approved through you first before they went through the rest.
Wait a minute.
Before they-
Generally, what I've been trying to do is not approve things before that require site plan. So the planning board, I don't see this as one of those applications, but so the planning board isn't shoehorned into accepting it. Can you help us with this?
Yeah, we'll help you out with whatever you need.
Okay.
I'm from the planning department, so
Okay, okay.
you can come
Send-
by tomorrow or anytime and we'll help you.
Go
move
through the next
application
step.
along. Yep.
Okay.
But
sure.
is this up for site plan, this?
I'm not aware
No,
that it
it's
is.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay, but you need a letter to the planning board or the planning department?
Planning department,
Ah, that's different. Okay, that's fine.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll figure it
we'll
out.
figure it
Eric will,
out.
Eric will help you
Okay,
figure it
I
out.
appreciate it. Okay, thank
Okay,
you very
thanks
much.
very much. Okay, bye now. Okay, next up is business sign, Madison IT Group, Suffolk County Tax Act number 300-172-6-3. This is in care of Diane Leverrier. Is Miss Leverrier here? Hi, how are you? Good, thanks. Welcome. Okay, so our general protocol here is for the board member who represents the application to discuss it, and then we'll ask you for any comments.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Diane?
Okay, this is an application for a sign that hangs perpendicularly to the building in Amagansett. It's the first building as you arrive in Amagansett, basically on the ocean side. And it is 8 square feet and it's very neat. And we have some pictures.
That I believe is the old.
That's the old sign.
Okay.
My new pictures. Now, the thing is, but in fact, is not a sign. This is the new sign. It's very nice. It's very in keeping, but there are in fact 3 signs because in each window, it's on a corner, and in each window there is another 2x4 sign, which basically I think those signs have been there a long time, and aggregately they only add up to 24 square feet, which is also fine. So I don't see any problem with this
So
application.
the application itself doesn't have the consent from the property owner, which I know that you signed the authorization on behalf of your client who's tenant at that place, but the previous approvals from the ARB for Doug Monaro's office and the past building permits. Those all had the owner's consent that was signed by the LLC that is listed as owner. And I question, I don't know, it's possible that they would sign off on it, but this is a business complex. There's a directory sign, so under the, I guess it's close to a directory sign, but the top sign is supposed to be the name of the business complex or directory with the then lower signs for each individual business. So I don't know that that's acceptable in its current incarnation, but you would need to get the authorization from the owner of the property.
Oh, I was assuming that we're in front of the board because we have a complete
I
application.
spoke with
And
the
that's why
owner when
the-
I inspected it,
The
Owner of
owner
the
of the
store.
building?
this of Madison IT.
Yeah, no, he's
Okay.
saying the
He's
landlord.
saying the landlord because they're tenants.
In the application that you didn't have consent from the property owner.
We have consent from the owner of the business. It's my understanding that the owner of the business was the individual that was cited for the violation regarding the business that led to us having to submit the application for the sign permit. So the owner of the business has signed off on that. My understanding from having conversations with the Architectural Review Board administrative staff is that there is no ARB permit for the Doug Moliterno sign.
Absolutely is. From 2014.
Well, that's not what's
That's
before
a
us
new
at this
sign.
point. That's not what's before us. I
Yeah,
think
right.
if I'm understanding this correctly, I think that you could probably put the signs in your window without needing the building owner's consent. But if you're going to erect something on the building that is replacing what to this point has been a directory sign for the building, that you would need the building owner's consent.
Well, it was my understanding that this was, it was initially viewed as a replacement in kind, and it turned out not to be a replacement in kind because of the change of the shape generally, with regard to the color scheme and the actual size of the sign itself. It's, it's very much in keeping with the prior design of the sign in terms of style, color. The new sign's a little bit more modern. But like I
Anybody's
said,
objecting to
I
the
was under
style
the
of the
impression that
sign.
we were in
Yeah.
before this board because we had submitted a complete
Yeah,
application.
no, if only that were true in so many other occasions too. You're not the only one who comes before us and discovers that there are elements of your application that need further
Work.
support.
So can we, assuming all is in order in terms of the actual style scheme, color of the sign, can we approve the application with the condition that it be, that we submit the owner's consent
I
to
don't,
the application?
I don't know if I'd have to ask counsel on that. I'm less comfortable with that because of the, if it were some other thing besides the consent of the person who owns the building on which you're erecting this exterior sign is the thing I'm having trouble with. It's
But
not.
it's
any-
always been exterior.
No, I understand, but the one that's erected, one assumes was erected by the building owner.
It was, there was a.
So that makes, you have removed his sign and put yours in its place.
That's not correct.
Okay,
We
well,
removed the prior, you have a picture of the prior sign that was up
Yes,
there.
I have it in the file.
The prior sign was owned by Amagansett Business Center. It's the same individual. The name of the business changed from Amagansett Business Center to Madison IT, but it's
Oh.
the same owner.
oh, okay, does that change it,
So that's
David?
not it's not the name of the business complex, it's the name of the
No.
business. That's
Correct.
I was wondering. about
Yeah,
that.
I thought, I understood it to be a directory sign that was owned by which is my
It's not owned
hesitancy
by,
with
no,
it.
it's not owned by the
Right.
landlord. It's the prior sign was owned by my client, by Amagansett Business Center. Amagansett Business Center was taken over by Madison IT, same owner still, just different name.
Okay. David, does that change things?
I hope so.
Well, I am, Doug Monaro's sign permit had authorization from 136 Main Street, Amagansett.
I see.
LLC owner.
Okay. And do we have?
But
any-
you're saying that
we
back
don't
in
have any-
2014 because this sign was just newly erected. This is a new sign. It's not the same sign that was there before. If you look at the old sign, you
Yeah,
have a
there's-
picture.
It's very
It's
similar.
different.
Can you put it back?
Similar.
Are we
but
talking
you can
about
explain that.
Moliterno's sign?
Yes.
Yes, that says Moliterno PC. There's a new sign. It was brought to my attention. The new sign was brought to my attention by someone in the ARB. They thought that we had put that up there. And I explained that we didn't put that up there. That was newly installed by Doug Moliterno. Can you put on the new one?
The other picture there. It's very similar.
It's very similar, but it's a new
But it's,
sign.
but her point
I don't
is it's a
believe he had the
different
owner's,
sign. Yeah, so
consent.
it's just fair enough.
Was it green
property card
before? Now
indicates
it's
that-
blue?
I can't,
Original
I
one,
tell from
it's hard to say, but
It seems closer to a replacement in kind.
Well, but that's a determination to be made by the board.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's not a determination to be made by the ARB attorney.
well, we
Either way-
take advice from the ARB attorney and we rarely act without his guidance. So it's not,
They could approve the stuff in the windows if you wanted to, that signage.
But what else?
okay.
There are other pictures, Eric,
Okay.
that showed the signing,
Don't
that
we-
my pictures that showed the signage in the windows.
Would seem,
Yeah.
Voila.
Diane told.
There are
Seth
also
that
two
this
by
was
four, these signs, and there's one in each window.
And they're all the same size,
They're all the
right?
same size. So
Right.
aggregately, it's 24
24
feet.
square feet, and that's the same color scheme and so forth, right?
Right.
Yeah. Is that the sign? Computer service open?
That's not the
Well,
sign.
No,
The
I
sign
mean,
is.
No, but
That's
they
where
are
it is.
signs. and
Oh,
they are
correct, inside the
visible, and
building.
They are,
Mhm.
they are not part of the application, but they are
Yes,
part of the premises. And so
right.
it only seems right to mention them, but everything is within code. So with the signage itself, there's no problem.
I understand.
There's some technicality about who owns the building. I mean, I have no idea.
Yeah. I'm stuck on that myself. I don't really know. So, but they're before us only for the exterior sign, it would seem. Even though the other two signs should be permitted by this agency. Isn't that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah,
So you'll
I'm
need to
happy to
make
take a look in the file and see, what the status is of it, because that's definitely a new sign and I wouldn't want my client to be receiving any kind of disparate treatment regarding his sign.
Okay, well, then so that's another reason we really can't act on it tonight because we're gonna have to find that
Okay.
out. Okay.
Yep.
So fair enough. Okay, we'll take a look and get you on as soon as we can.
Adjourned.
Adjourned.
Is the meeting adjourned or?
No, I'll just table it. I think we would table this because we don't have enough information to act on it tonight. It's incomplete. This is incomplete.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
thank you. All right, well,
Moving right
it's always something. Okay, fences, walls, gates and berms. Carrie Barrett, Longhouse Reserve, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-142-1-13.1. I know there's a representative from Longhouse here because he was here bright and early.
Carrie's here.
Carrie's here too. Well, there you go. Diane, I think council has advised that you should recuse.
Yeah, too
Okay.
bad. I really wanted to hear it.
Well,
You can watch
you
it.
can sit in the back and throw fruit at us if you want.
Oh, it's remote.
Okay, Chip, that's you. Hi, how are you?
Hello, good night. This is Ramon Chavez Martinez, again from Halcon Gate and Fence in East Hampton, and representing the owner of 123 Hens Creek Road in East Hampton.
Okay, so this is an application for two sets of driveway gates for a U-shaped drive on this 15-acre property, which now functions as a museum and arboretum. One set is at the entrance drive, the other is at the exit drive. As this is no longer a home for Jacqueline or Larson, there are periods of time in the winter and at night when no one is at Longhouse. The gates would function as a much-needed security measure for those times, but the gates will always be open when the property is staffed and when it is open to the public. Good, okay. So both sets of gates would sit behind cattle guards in the driveways and be 5.5 feet tall and attached to 5.5 feet tall stucco posts. That's the drawing of the gates at the bottom. It would be exactly the same. The post would be 14 inches square. Each gate would slide to open and be 18 feet wide. They're going to be electrified gates. They would be just outside the scenic easement along Hands Creek Road, which is a very irregularly drawn easement. It's not a straight line. The entrance gate, which is how you drive into the property, is 110 feet from the edge of the pavement. The exit gate is 55 feet from the edge of the pavement. Gates themselves are wood horizontal planks, 6 inches wide with 2-inch spacing, woven on metal, on a metal frame, and there's vertical members every 18 inches, and those are the vertical things you see on the gate. It's almost like a basket weave. Given the scale of this property with towering cryptomeria evergreens along the driveways, I really have no issue with the post and gates being 5.5 feet tall. I would like to see the gates a bit more open and transparent with narrow horizontal planks and wider spacing, possibly 5-inch boards with 3-inch spacing instead of 6-inch boards with 2-inch spacing. The call box, which is not indicated on the survey, needs to be outside the scenic easement. I'd like to let Ramon talk a little bit about it, or Carrie.
Let's see, you want to start for the call box?
Well, you don't have the call box on the survey, so we can't really discuss that.
Yeah, we don't have it.
So that's going to have to be placed on a survey at a second meeting.
We will.
Okay.
That is what we're trying to apply. I would like to see if that can be, that can fit in your standards. We can have it.
Have what?
The call box, I think. Well, if the gates are outside the easement, maybe that's part of the trouble, if it can't be, if it's.
Well,
I don't know if they're-
David, it can't, the call box can't be in the easement, right?
I don't know if the gates can be in the
No,
easement.
they're not in the easement. They're just,
Oh, I
they're
thought you
just
said,
inside the property.
okay, I see.
On the language of the easement.
It does provide for cross-access. The easement allows for, access through it. So we'd have to double check the exact wording of it.
Okay.
But
Okay. So
I
that,
suspect it would be permitted, you know what I mean? It's something that's associated with providing access to the site, so.
okay. So these gates are going to sit behind cattle guards. So the cattle guards are outside the easement. So the call box could be right on the,
right,
on the
that's a
cattle
good
guards
idea, yeah.
themselves. And then you, that's a normal place to stop. So that's a real small technicality. The bigger issue is making the gates a little bit more open and transparent. And I think that would be accomplished by reducing the width of the planks and also opening up the space between them.
Okay, right now, we have,
Sure.
is the architect can keep it up,
Sure.
can keep us with admit. Okay.
My name's.
Hi. Yes, my name's David Vimont. I work at Skolnick Architecture and Design. Lee Skolnick sends his regrets. He couldn't be here. He's been very involved with this project from the beginning. I heard your comment about the 6-inch boards and 2-inch spacing and the preference for 5-inch boards and 3-inch spacing. Just so you know a little of the history, when there's a board and we went through a fairly long process where we looked at various schemes, including more or less what you're describing. But interestingly, exactly as you described, the basket weave, which was sort of like a reference to Jack Leonard Larson's legacy of being a textile designer, the board really gravitated towards the sort of more tightly knit concept. We felt that although Ramon pointed out to us that this may have been not as easily accepted by the board, we wanted to present it anyway to sort of suggest that it would be open during all operational hours or special events. The height of it, which is actually a little less than 5.5 feet, might be still sort of help with that visibility across the top and slightly through the 2-inch spacing. But I understand that this might not necessarily be typical for a gate. But
Well, let's ask the board members their viewpoint. Ms. Baranza?
Yeah, no, my initial reaction was like we prefer at least 50% translucency. So to me, that becomes more of a wall. And I understand the
reference.
basket weave reference, and it's quite beautiful, but it still presents as a wall. So as set back as it is, it's just, we're disinclined to having such great opacity.
Kathy?
I have two questions. I mean, I agree with Chip on the opacity, and I take the reference to the weaving, and I understand that. And I'm touched by the loyalty to his work, that even the gate would be representative in some way of his visions. But we are in the position of needing to treat each application with consistency, and we do generally ask for 50% opacity. So I would lean toward the same recommendation that Chip and Esperanza made. The other question I have is about the height of it. I can't tell really so much from the drawing. You know, I understand, but right. But I'm wondering where grade is. This is a little, is the brown part on the image at the bottom of the page that's on the screen? Is that are those the cattle grates? Guards?
It's actually just meant to, yes, it could be interpreted as the cattle guards.
Because what happens, what we have trouble with, and I know you understand this because you're an architect, but oftentimes we'll say the measurement is from the grade.
Right.
So you've got to include that space beneath the last slat. And that, it's not clear to me that that's been taken into consideration. Is there a measurement there?
No, but the man is standing on the.
Well, I recognize
But
that,
these are
but
gonna
this is just an
slide.
illustration.
They're gonna
Yeah.
slide,
Yeah, no, I get it, but I'm still not clear on what is that? What is the difference there? We've just had it go wrong so
Yeah.
many other times. That's all. I just, sometimes the vision isn't always executed, especially when it comes to gates and
Yeah.
uneven, I mean,
Maybe to help kind of clarify, the cattle guards are existing,
yes, I
Yes,
know. Yeah.
and as such, they're perfectly level. And in that they are at grade and sort of a straight line, which the top of where the man is standing, he'd be standing on sort of the top of the cattle guard or standing at grade. And so there's a 2-inch gap between that and the gate, a necessary gap to sort of, so that it can slide back and forth. And then there's 4'9", and then another, and then the bar top and bottom. So the total height is a little less than 5 feet, 5 inches.
Yeah.
But that 2-inch clearance, based on our experience, is very, very small. I think you're going to need,
Tight.
you get snow, you get mud, you get stuff, but I think 2 inches is very tight to the ground.
Yeah.
We would recommend like 3 or 4 inches.
4 sounds, yeah.
4 would be
Simone knows.
better.
Yeah, he knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Just out of practicality.
Right. Because it does have to slide and there'll be build up, especially with anyway, I think everybody agrees with that. But then I don't know, what do you think, Frank?
Well, first question, just so from my knowledge. So what is the material? It says wood. Now, is it going to be just like what kind of species? Is it painted or?
Cedar.
Okay.
Stained and
And the verticals, is that metal or wood?
metal rods.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The diameter.
Well, normally I would have an objection to the opacity of this. But I also bear in mind the first one is 55, the exit gate's 55 feet from the pavement and the entry gate is 110 feet from the pavement. And so it's quite a ways in. So I'm actually fine with it. I think it's a very elegant, and I don't think it's, given the distance from the street, I'd be okay with it. I might suggest that if the board is not comfortable, if the rest of the board is not comfortable with the opacity, and it's only if, but instead of another way of doing this, instead of decreasing the wood slats, because you want it to appear woven, right? You want it to give that impression. What would this look like if you lost the top coursing? So you brought it down 8 inches. So it would become 4 feet. I'm just suggesting that as an alternative to make it more opaque, is you just make it lower it, which might actually allow you to raise the gate leaves a few inches.
Carrie and I measured the gate for 5.5 feet. There are huge cryptomerias that must be 50, 60 feet tall right behind this. And our view was that if you have this little short gate with this monumental shrubbery, I think it's going to look out of scale. That's why I said 5.5 didn't bother me. I mean, it's unusual for us to grant 5.5, but this is a case where the scale of this place is just tremendous.
Well, that's true. It is big.
Just add, if it helps, just to keep in mind that in addition to the basket.
Sure. Would you just come up to the mic and identify yourself, because we know who you are, but the public is
Carrie Barrett,
watching.
I'm the director of
Thank you.
Longhouse. In addition to extensive study of the relationship of the gate to Jack's baskets, which I gather you all appreciate a reference to Jack. We are a museum, and the look from the street identifies us as such. So it's not like a house. People come, we have a sign out in front, and the gates, everything from the moment you turn into the driveway has that perfection and the exquisiteness that we're carrying on even after Jack had died. So the consideration of what this gate looks like as an aesthetic part of Longhouse, and in my mind, we didn't put in this, but I'm thinking more actually about what it looks like when it's open most of the time for people coming in, for people driving by it. In fact, most visitors to Longhouse will only see it when it's open. So the opacity to the street is important, but the reference to this is Longhouse and what you're about to enter was part of that consideration.
Is it open year round?
We're open April 1st till the end of December. So closed January, February, March.
Okay.
And we're open right now. This is new. Jack said, when I die, open my house to the public.
Right.
So 5 days a week. It was open, but not a lot. So 5 days a week, 12 to 5. Very often in the evenings during the summer, because we do a lot of events. We're doing members mornings on Wednesdays and Sundays coming up this season. This is all new. So open more than ever. Our closed days on Mondays and Tuesdays, we're not only closed because we're closed, but we're closed because we're pruning trees and lawn mowing and blowing, and we can't have people on the property. I've been at Longhouse for a year. Every single day, there's somebody walking a dog, coming in. It's wide open. It's wide open. So I know the main question here is the aesthetics. We're not arguing the need for a gate, but that also has to do with the opacity of it. When we're closed, we're closed.
But it is closed 4 months out of the year, correct?
3.
3 months out of the year.
And at night.
And at night.
So I'm just saying that
Right.
when it is closed, it's also when the trees are most barren. So you're going to say the gate more.
Yeah.
I think the entrance gate, 110 feet back would be fine, but for the way the curves around the exit gate at 55 feet is, it's quite close to the street. And
but I guess for the board, if we were to move that one further back, so would it?
Off the crowd, you have to fence it because the cattle grate's there, and then move the gate back. I think it's charming the way it is. I wouldn't go moving stuff around. Maybe we can.
I will say, if you move it back, you're going to start, if you look at the survey, it starts to move into the curve. So it becomes less visible from the street if people are concerned about that. So not only are you moving it back from the street, you're moving it.
What would the process be of getting you? And we have these designs because, as David said, at board meetings consistently over the year, we had mock-ups. We looked at little gates sitting on our conference table. This was studied extensively, and of course, without knowing, except for Diane, who was able to share with us what the ARB would hope for. Our board picked something that was most aesthetically consistent with Jack Lenore Larson's vision. But I don't want to get in. We can show you. We have it.
Oh, it's not.
We
not
have it. It just
necessary.
wasn't. It
It's
just
really
wasn't
not
aesthetically.
necessary. I think we all appreciate that. What's happening is that this design is bumping up against our practice.
Got it.
So that's where we're kind of like, well, yeah, it looks nice and does represent Jack, but we usually ask for 50% opacity. And as Frank pointed out, if the gates are going to be closed for 3 months of the year from where they're most visible,
I'm just
when the
asking how we
trees
get you, how we show that to you.
show.
We would ask you to come back with slightly revised plans, with the gate a little bit more off the ground. Because we're going to ask for.
Oh, that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then
Thanks, Chip.
also,
Okay.
You know, I mean, if it was, it would be 4 inches and 4 inches if we.
So a
if we-
little more off the ground with more opacity in
I
the
mean,
gate.
I went for
Yeah.
3 and 5. You had 6 and 2.
Right.
But I mean, 4 and 4 would be 50%.
Right.
But then you'd have these huge gaps. That's why I thought to
3 and
respect the
5
plan,
was-
I
right.
thought 5 and 3 would
was-
be a
right.
compromise.
And could you also make a recommendation for moving the entry gates back a certain amount that would
That would
allow this
be,
design to be,
The exit gate, you mean?
The exit gate, the entry gate is 110 feet back. So
sorry, the entry gate.
That's up to you guys. I mean.
Hello, my name is Martha Reichert from Toomey, Latham, Shea, Kelly, Dubin, and Quartararo. I represent the Longhouse as well. And I just wanted to make one comment to the board, which is I greatly understand your policies, but I do think that it's helpful to point out to this board that any potential deviation from, say, your standard policies for residential gates has very limited precedential value when it comes to this property for the following reasons. While it is a residential museum, it's only one of 2 in the town of East Hampton. So again, if you were to deviate from some of these policies, again, it's very specific and unique to this property, and there aren't a lot of other properties that can claim that they are similar or similarly situated to the Longhouse in terms of the size and acreage, and also the use, not just as a museum, but as an arboretum. I just wanted to make that statement to the board in terms of your deliberations.
thank you, council.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, Chip, do you want to make a recommendation? I mean, I think we're all,
So Frank, you were.
well, I'm pretty comfortable with it, but I was sort of trying to suggest some
Alternatives.
some other strategies that might be more palatable if people have reservations about it. The most obvious to me seems to move it back.
But if you move it back too much, you're going to be on a curve, right? Here, straight.
well, I mean, does that become a structural obstacle to move it back on?
Here, straight.
Oh, I see.
I mean, you'd be back in here somewhere.
Okay.
So you can move it back or make,
How far back is it now?
55.
55, and the entrance is 110.
And you can see the rough location as
Yeah.
referenced by the cattle grates on the aerial.
Yes, it curves right away.
So they're within the property behind the cattle grate, the walks. Okay.
The other one is on a curve also.
The side yard now, because it's set so far back.
Say again?
Good point.
I think that they might just be entitled to it because it's more than 50 feet from the edge of the pavement.
True
Well,
enough.
then
But we're okay. Oh, with the design or with the 5.5?
with what, the height of it?
Yeah, because at that point, then it's treated as a side yard, right? So they
Yeah,
have-
we're okay with the height, I think. Yeah, the height's not an issue, David. It's the design.
It's the transparency. I mean, we've just been made, we,
As of right.
Yeah, in other words, he's saying they could have.
yes, I get it. Yeah, yeah. So, but isn't it, so we don't have any input on it at all? Is that what you're saying?
Then the board could make recommendations about it,
Okay, well
On
then,
height or design?
design.
Oh, on the design, they can do whatever they like?
we're learning so many things.
It's far enough away from the edge of the pavement that technically it's treated as the side yard.
As a
So
side
you're
yard.
allowed, up to 6 feet as as of right, in the side and rear yard.
And the design, the opacity of that structure is not within our purview.
I mean, I think that they're before us, so they've consented to our jurisdiction, but, I would ask if they would consider, some kind of compromise, but I think they wanted to hold our feet to the fire, that
Okay,
they might have a pretty good argument.
well,
So,
um,
I mean, I could go with it.
I understand. I could sort of too. Yes. I mean, because I get the inspiration behind this, but I'm working so hard to be consistent on this transparency issue that it's hard for me to let that go, even though I'm with you in spirit. It's just.
But it's
what
an
we-
institutional use. It's not a residential use.
You know,
residential area.
it's
a very residential area, yeah.
Zoned. I mean, isn't the zoning just the issue? And it is a residential area and people drive by it, but I feel like I could go either way on this too. I don't object to the design. The opacity. I mean, it would be nice to see what, 3 to 5 might look like, if that would make a big difference. It might, but I hate to make them go through these motions if it's really not something we can insist on anyway.
Right.
So I'm inclined to just approve it. I
Yeah,
don't know.
The exit gate for me is when you're driving north. It's not Stephen Hands, it's
Hands Creek.
Hands Creek. When you're driving north and it's 55 feet, it's going to be a blip. And I realize that, of course, you have to consider like not just drive. I don't think it's pretty set back, and
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that.
it's not
It's
solid,
just,
you
yeah.
know?
Okay, it's not solid.
My concern would be, again, from a practical standpoint, as drawn,
That's why I'm pushing.
maybe you would have to excavate the driveway down to make this functional.
Or bring the bottom of the gate up a little bit.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I think you really do need to address is you don't have enough
Clearance.
clearance
And the
under the
mono.
gate, I think, to make it functional.
And I think that would help with the
Transparency for sure.
translucency,
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
air, a little air.
The height would be.
Yes.
Right, but just do something to the bottom that would give a little more
So do we need?
air. You need
Air,
just more
yeah.
space and air.
We
So
need to see revised plans.
I think we should. I mean, I don't think it'll take long for them to do that. We can get them on quickly, but whatever we approve should be, if there's going to be an adjustment made to the plan, we should have that submitted
Okay.
for the file. Okay, so, Chip, do you want to?
I think we're actually come around. The height's good. The design is acceptable. We want you to just be practical and raise the bottom up. So it has maybe, Ramon will tell you 4 or 6
4
inches
inches
clearance.
Yeah, 4 to 6 maybe, because
Gonna have to come back before us with those new drawings.
adjustment.
And I would believe we're good to go at that point.
Eric, is there a way that they could indicate raised 4 to 6 inches, or does the board, you prefer to have them come back with that?
I think if they just resubmitted, it really just, to my mind, needs to be correctly logged in our files.
Mm.
And I think we can do it quickly. If you can get it into us quickly, we should be able to just say, oh, good, you did what we asked you to do, go in peace. So,
Let me also ask, just to make sure the driveway is not elevated
No.
above, the driveway is
It's all
completely
flat
level
there.
with the surrounding.
Flat
grade.
as
Okay.
this.
yeah, it's all
Okay,
flat.
it's not like it's gonna pop up. Okay.
So, I think that's how we would leave it. If you just resubmit the plan that shows us that you have that space beneath the gate.
And indicate the inches on the.
Right, indicate the dimensions on it. I mean, everything you've done. Just do that, just add that to it and we should be good to go.
Now, does the gate need to be dimensioned on the survey? A
be.
property line or?
It is.
Well, isn't it
is.
already? I think it is.
It is.
The only thing that's not is the call box.
Oh,
Like the
100
distance of the proposed gate to the property line, is that a requirement? Or do we not need that? I just don't want to have
Well,
them.
if we're considering it a side yard, then I think we should be depicted so that we know what the actual distance is, so that
I just don't want them to have to
Correct.
come back again
I
on a
understand.
technicality.
So the survey needs the dimension from the gate to the road, and then it also needs the location of the call box.
right,
So you might as well do it all at once.
yes.
My question for this board is, could we have a conditional approval conditioned upon the submission of a survey that shows the call box dimensions from the fence and a revised drawing of the fence showing the 4-inch clearance subject to the planning department's review, or that it conforms with this board's conditions? Just in the interest of expediency.
It's not, you know,
That's not how we generally do
usual. I
this.
mean, if the board's
Okay.
comfortable with it, we could certainly do that, but it's at the discretion of.
Yeah, I don't doubt the intentions, but as a practice, we don't generally do that. I just
right.
ask for the paperwork to be submitted. We'll get you on as soon as we can, because it'll be very quick. You know, we just need to say,
The lawyers always ask the same question you
here's
just
the call
asked.
box.
Yeah.
Here's the call
But
box.
we
here's
have to
what
then
ask.
chase, we have to then chase you if it doesn't go exactly right. It's better.
No,
to-
and I appreciate that. I just thought I'd ask to see
No,
if it
it's a
was
fair
something that
question.
the board and council would
Yeah,
consider.
we generally don't do a lot of conditioned approvals just because it's,
It creates more work.
it does create more work and our portfolio is broad. So if
Okay.
you would just come back with the, you know, as Frank and Chip have mentioned, have the, you know,
Call box,
and depicted on the
dimensions.
survey and the dimensions of how far away from the property line.
Revised drawing of the fence.
Correct. Yep, with that clearance beneath.
The surveyor would know, but it's the dimension to the property line.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, we'll send you a letter of, you know, a follow-up letter that'll be a list of these things.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thanks
Ramon.
very much, Ramon. Man. Okay, Craig McDean. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-91-1-10.4. We welcome member Benson back to the board. Okay. This is yours, Esperanza. Let's just wait for Diane to see. Is Mr. is it Dion or Dean? It's Dean, right?
Dean.
Dean. Are you,
I'm his proxy. My name's Lisa Pilon.
could you spell that, please?
Sure. Pilon is my surname.
It's on the, and your first name, Miss
Lisa. Leeza.
Oh, Lisa. Okay,
Yes.
great. So you're Lisa at Craig McLean Studio,
Yes.
McDean Studio.
me.
Yeah. Okay, great. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so the way this works is our committee person will review it and then we'll ask you for any comments.
Okay.
Okay, Diane.
No, me.
Oh, sorry. Esperanza.
Esperanza. So this is an application, the brief description of the proposed project. It says you are seeking a certificate of occupancy for a gate and a fence that have been on this property since 1999. Now that confused me a little bit because I know there is, and I think you submitted it, an approval for deer fencing from 1999, but the gate is brand new.
The gate has been there for 20 years, but we replaced it from an wrought iron gate to a wooden gate.
So it's not the same gate and that gate was not approved. It wasn't part of the approval is my point.
Well, I think there was a sort of miscommunication where we thought this was approved in 1999, hence the reason there has been a gate there for over 20 years. And then the motor blew up last year, so we just replaced based on the same dimensions.
I see.
So we didn't realize we had to get approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Right, because the approval from October 7, 1999, it's the letter indicates just a fence constructed of non-metallic material, indicates that and also the approval was for 8-foot deer fencing, I should point out. Even though that's not in this approval letter, but it's in the property card. The existing fencing, what I measured, the dimensions that I measured, I had between 94 and 97 inches, which is about right, is what you indicated. But the posts that this fencing was attached to are over 8 feet. So in fact, they're not in compliance with your original 1999 approval. So those would need to be cut down.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, what do you have? The deer fence posts, we had an 8'3", so we need to cut them down to 8
Yeah,
foot.
I measured 101, 103 inches in a couple of spots. And so they're kind of over that maximum height.
Okay.
The other thing I noticed also is that there's some fencing that's outside your property line. So if you look at the top of the survey,
right
along that top property line, there's fencing that if you could zoom in there, Eric.
Yeah, it sort of wanders outside the property line
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So just bringing that to your attention, if you're proceeding with cutting down these posts, it should be brought into within the property line.
So you're saying at this area up here, it's out of our property line?
Yeah, near exactly where the tennis court is. See how it veers out? There's a little dotted line.
Right. Okay.
Just so, and there's another section, I think, somewhere else. I think on the southwest, possibly, but I wasn't sure if that was yours or not. And then, so that's the deer fencing.
Okay. So basically, just so we have it clear, the post should be at 8 foot.
Well,
Exactly.
to comply with your original approval.
Okay.
Yeah, which
Okay, that
nobody
makes-
ever sought a CO or a building permit for that matter. So there's nothing on record. So to comply with that,
Okay.
it should be. Or, cut it down to the 94, 90. Yeah,
Okay.
better. And so the driveway gate is a 7-foot high driveway gate.
Mhm.
I think you have it as, 7 feet. I measured 6 feet, 7 inches, and it's 15 feet, 2 inches wide. It's what we would consider, and you may have heard the discussion that we just had prior, it has no translucency. It's fully opaque. So we dissuade applicants from having a wall, which is essentially what this is, much less so at 7 feet. And we can't approve over 6 feet.
How far from the road is it?
The measurement,
I
though.
mean, is it visible from anything?
The reserve is right across the way. I mean, no, it's not visible from a main road. It's just, it's a wall.
I mean, it's a private
It's
drive.
a very
yeah.
open.
Yeah, well,
beautiful-
it's just really big.
It's big and
Yeah.
it's
And it has no approval, so we might as well, try to get it right. I mean, I would recommend, do you have a recommendation?
well, it needs to, in my opinion, based on how this board has usually reviewed these types of applications, it should be reduced in height, first of all, not to exceed 6 feet. I would recommend something even lower because this is such a bucolic spot. It just seems to impede the vista. And then address the translucency of the design.
So as a practical matter, you could put it down to 5 or 6 feet and pull a board, every other board out or something like that, and that might help.
I mean, that having it that low is it's not gonna keep out animals or deers. And we previously have had that same height for sort of 20 years there.
Right, but
so-
you had no approval for that. See, the thing is, you're not the only person that has this problem. A lot of people just build gates and think it's okay. They just don't know that our code requires a review by this board before you build a gate, at which, you probably weren't here in the beginning of the meeting, but we have a very specific charge to maintain the harmony and the character of the community. And gates that are fully opaque and really tall are not in keeping with the character of the community. So that's
No,
that's
I
what,
totally understand. The thing
Right.
is that is a private laneway with 2 other houses out the back. So who's really seeing that? It's not like
but,
it's an eyesore.
right, I understand,
or-
but that's, for the same reason that you were able to put that gate up thinking it was fine, because someone will drive by it and say, well, that person has a 7-foot gate that's completely opaque. So why can't I put my, it just becomes a creeping trend that we are charged with massaging it so that you can get what you need, but it's still in keeping with the harmony of our community.
Right.
So I recognize that this is a little like a shock for you because
Yeah, it is.
you feel like you've had a gate there for 20 years and it's never been a problem before. But the
now you
bottom
want
line
an
is when you go to get a certificate of occupancy, what happens most often is people try to sell this sell properties and then they have to get a CO for things that haven't been permitted in that way. And then they find out that they're in violation of the code. So it's many steps
Yeah.
back. So I have empathy
Yeah, it is
for
a
your.
shock because we.
Yeah,
purchased this
I have
in-
empathy and I understand that, but maybe, is it your property or do you work for your?
No, I work
You
for
work for
Mr.
the,
McDean. So,
okay.
But
So
yeah,
maybe just go back and explain to him what the situation is and that, get a fence contractor or somebody in. I think the easiest thing would just to be to cut them down and remove every other board.
I know,
But
but it just goes against the architectural design. of how
I
this
hear
was
you,
done.
but I think your alternative is to just, replace them altogether. So you're going to have to come up with some other design that some other dimension with this design or with another design.
Yeah.
That we can see through.
Right. That has some opacity, some transparency.
Right. And yeah, my dimension, I'm sorry, the dimension 6 feet 7 inch. I measured 6 feet 9 inches actually.
And
So
also the measurement are taken from grade, which means not the actual width of the gate from top to bottom of the material,
panel, yeah.
but from the roadway.
Yeah, I
to the
did. I
top.
did understand. I did measure it
Right.
this morning when I arrived here, but I was doing
Okay.
this from
Right,
Australia.
but it's not
so-
depicted that way on the
Yeah,
picture.
I
It's just the
apologize.
measurement of the gate itself. And this happens all the time.
time again,
So
yeah.
we feel the need to.
Yeah,
remind
no, sorry, I did
applicants of
realize that when we were
Right.
sitting down.
So that's about as much as I think we can offer you at this time. Maybe go back and speak with your employer, explain to him what's happening and
All right, so can you just like recap exactly what you?
we'll send you a letter. We'll send you
Okay.
a follow-up letter with what our concerns are, including the fencing and so forth. And we'll get that out to you in the next week or
So
so.
I'm a little confused though, why you'd have to remove every second board. I mean. you
Well,
said
that's
gate-
just a solution to give you opacity. It seems to me that might be an easier thing to do. It may be impossible to do. I don't know, but that means you can use the gate you have and just take some.
So keep
boards.
it at that height you're saying and then.
No,
remove some
I'm
boards.
saying you have to lower it. It's got to be shorter. It's got to be lower and it has to be more transparent.
In terms of transparency, the general rule of thumb is that we kind of work for is preferred at least 50% opacity. So it means at least every other board, or I say 50% open, right? So if you got one board and one, so that's kind of a rule of thumb. And it's not to say that the design here should be every other one. I mean, a quick fix might be considered, I would suggest, is take the top board off and then I don't actually know if the correct number of that might, I don't actually know if that would work in
Work.
terms of removing boards. Nope, of course. it
There's an
wouldn't
even
work.
number.
That
Yeah,
is
you'd have to take
eight.
off the top
Right.
two and then open
Right.
it. So
So there's no way of getting approval to put in an approval for that height because it's on 7 acres and deer just jumps straight over that if it was under
Right. Well,
6 foot.
well, I mean, everybody here lives with,
No, I understand that. And we did do a lot of research on gates and there was a lot of these types of designs, which is why I'm just confused about the clear, like having clear.
So it can be taller than 6 feet if it's in the side of the backyard. She's welcome to put it in an application. It's still discretionary.
If it's where?
If it's in the side or rear yard.
It's not, technically.
But
it's
it
in
is
the
a
front
flag
yard.
lot that, so how does that work?
It's just far from the road.
So it's side yard meaning how far back it's from the pavement, yard fronting facing the public street.
so where's the front yard of this property?
Flag lots do not have a front yard.
Okay.
They have only side and rear yards.
Oh,
Flag lots do not have. Well,
okay. Well, that changes.
so it's
the-
interesting because
That's a new
as
one.
I think I mentioned this earlier, this could have been a road. So what if it
I mean-
turned into a road one day? I don't know. I mean,
And
it
really,
just-
there's like one other car that drives down there. So it's a very.
it's just,
private
know,
lane.
honestly, I think
totally
it's a
understand.
beautiful bucolic. There's 7 acres there. You're surrounded by reserve and you come up to this wall. It's jarring. That's all.
There, even with the, It's, yeah, I think the transparency is the big stumbling block here.
I mean, we did have a transparent iron gate, but it wasn't like a safety issue if we're not there. It's a private laneway. The only one that's coming down is one other house down the road. And then if anyone else is coming down, it's not there's something going on. They're turning around in our drive. They're taking a look at what's going on. It's more a security and, just a protection option.
Yeah.
It's the deer, it's the security.
Well, it's both, right?
All
Isn't
of
that
it.
what people
And
want to
children.
have?
We all live
We
here,
don't-
and we all experience these things. So
But David, can you give us a little direction here? Because I'm confounded by the
side yard.
by the existence of the non-existence of a front yard.
You would apply the applicable code provisions to the side and rear yard for the height limitation.
Okay, so it's 6 feet then, right? Okay, so it's got to come down to 6 feet. You can't be taller than 6 feet.
Which is
You
basically.
can approve up to 8 feet.
She could go. to
So it's
8 feet.
permissible to 6 feet, you're saying,
6 feet as of
even right up to the
But
road?
up
6
to
feet
8
as
feet
of
would
right,
be
up to 8
discretion.
feet discretionary for us.
So you can be right up to the road. It's 6 feet. So the flag lot can have a gate 30 feet from the road. It's 6 feet. But the
When you
lot-
say road, what do you mean road?
Yeah, what road are you talking about? It's a.
Do you mean
the
Northwest
driveway?
Road? Because that's the,
Northwest Road.
yeah.
So it's a 30 feet from the property line. The flag lot, the gate could be 6 feet tall and 30 feet back from the property line because it's in the side yard.
Because
It's-
everything is a
it's-
side yard or rear
It's
yard there.
as of right, you're saying 6 feet. But the lot next to it, of which the flag encircles, cannot be 6 feet. It just seems like a weird loophole.
Well, that's another.
But it's, I think Frank raises a really
By the code as
important
it's written.
point. So,
So it could be 6 feet, but
okay,
Thankfully,
Right.
that's, we just got to focus on what's in front of us right now.
we're going to have
So
to
I'll
have
also say for the applicant, these hearings are available for review online. So if you have any questions about some of the comments we've made, you're welcome to just review that. And
well, we'll send you a follow-up letter, but I think at this point, I would like to try to give the applicant a little more concrete advice, which is to say, if these are nearly 8-foot gates and we are within, it is within our purview to permit that height of gate, is the board inclined to do that? Because that seems to be what the applicant is asking for, to maintain these dimensions of gate. Now, that's just the size. The transparency is another issue.
Okay.
So how do we feel about the size? Given that there is no front yard, that this is now a gate on the side yard and we can approve up to 8 feet.
me, I'm comfortable going to like 7 feet if it's like minimal framing,
Okay.
but because it's so far back from the road in that location.
Right.
If it were like just basically almost like a wire gate
Yeah.
and
I think if you had this gate in that dimension, but you could see through it,
Okay.
we'd all be
Make
like,
a big
okay,
Yeah.
it's
We
really
understand.
big.
Yeah.
We get it, but this just it reads like a wall instead of a gate
I understand.
because
Okay.
it lacks transparency.
Okay.
If it were, as Frank was saying, some kind of mesh or even a chain link, which is less attractive in a bunch of ways. I'm not asking you to put a chain link fence in. I'm just saying, but that sort of transparency is what would, I think this board would be more inclined to approve that design
At that height.
at that height. But this design at this height is just like massive and obstructionist,
Got it.
because we are in charge of maintaining the vistas, and anything that's solid prevents people from seeing things.
Right.
Right?
Okay. So we could say that the height is approved, but I'll come back with a different design that on
I
how to
don't think
change that.
I don't think we can approve anything for you tonight. I think what we can tell you is, and this will be in the follow-up letter, that as a general principle, the height is okay,
Okay.
but only if you can submit a design of the gate that meets the transparency that we're looking for.
Okay.
And that would be a minimum of 50% transparency. And I think in this instance, you could go for even more and still get what you need. Because you're just trying to prevent deer from coming through. They're not going to crawl through the slats, you know, you just.
Well, deer and security, you forgot that.
Well, yeah, but they, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, but look, I've lived here for 45 years. You know, I leave my house open. The security is just not a thing. It's not a thing. Probably not the best thing to say on TV.
I just whipped around.
But anyway, my point is, you know, not saying you shouldn't be cautious, but I don't think that's
That's what
a big,
alarm systems
yeah,
are for
I
as
mean-
well.
Also,
I mean, just
When you look down the driveway, you're not looking at the house beyond the gate. So what I think we need to move on, but there's no
Yes.
security that you're hiding.
Yeah.
Behind, like, person's just gonna see beyond, way back into the woods if it's open there,
yeah.
you know, and
Yeah,
if they can
and
see the
that's a
house,
nice
they can
view.
see the house.
And that's a nice view.
it's such
I mean, that's
it's
the
such
idea.
a pretty
Yeah.
property. It really is so open that this seems out
Right.
of out of context.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right.
We'll send you a follow-up letter with those recommendations and then
Thank
you
you
can
so much.
resubmit. Sure thing. Have a good evening. Okay, next up is Fernando Levi, or
Maybe.
are you Mr. Levy? You're his representative. Welcome. Suffolk County Tax Act number 300-142-1-11.37. What is your name? What is your name, sir?
My name is Leo Cruz,
Leo, could you spell your last name, please?
CRUZ.
CRUZ. That was easy enough. Okay, so Mr. Cruz, the way we operate this is a board member that's assigned to this application will give their overview and then we'll ask you to, you know, if you have any questions or anything you'd like to add after that. Okay, great. Okay, Frank, this is yours.
Okay, this is an application for a property at Old Orchard Lane, bordering on agricultural reserve off of Cedar Street. This is an application to do two things. Renew an ARB application from 2012 to add dormers over the garage and to add a new dormer on the rear side of the long wing of the house where the where the entry is located. The house itself sits in a wooded area set back from the reserve, so it is largely out of view from the agricultural overlay, though there is a gap in the trees from the pool area in the back. I'm a bit confused by this application because the proposed structure above the garage, based on the 2012 approval, seems to have already been constructed, so I'm not sure why we're considering the scope of this work. And I'm not sure if a building permit was issued. The application states that this area includes 200 square feet of interior alterations. So if it's interior alterations only, is this something that we are considering? The other part of this application, which is construct new dormers on the south or long side of the house, is more straightforward because it hasn't been built. I would say before we continue giving it a full review of the application, I'd propose that we may need to deem the application incomplete because the drawings contain significant errors and omissions, including but not limited to: the north elevation is missing all windows on the north side of that long wing. The chimney is missing. There's a cupola on the garage door that's built but not in the drawings. Will this remain? The elevations state finished roof to match existing roof, but the existing roof is cedar shingle and the proposed roof is standing seam. Other windows are either inaccurate or don't reflect what is built. Either that or the owner plans to change most of the windows on the first floor that not listed on the application. So I can go on and I can share with the board some errors, but or I'd call maybe inconsistencies. But I think we should give the applicant a chance to speak.
Okay, Mr. Cruz, you're on.
All right. To clarify a little bit about the dormer over the garage, that was approved in 2012, I believe. and it was built, and it was then reviewed by their architectural review board, and basically approved for a C of O. But I guess they had, at that point, they had a clearing violation. So that building permit was never closed out because of that. It was built, inspected, but never closed out.
Yes, revegetation required prior to issues of sister. I've got the property card here.
Correct,
So
yeah.
in May of 2012, an additional 42 square foot second floor dormer and 200 square foot interior alterations at single family residence per ARB approval of 4/12/12 and all applicable codes. Revegetation required prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. So I think that was probably the hangup.
Yeah, so I guess the previous owners never closed that out. So
Right. It's still over cleared per aerials according to this property card. A revegetation plan was accepted, but it wasn't
it was done and
revegetated.
completed.
Oh, it was, okay. It
Yeah,
was
yeah, it has
revegetated
been
last year.
cleared,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we made sure it was
Got that. Yep.
done. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's and basically what we did, we added the existing dormer, right? That was approved, never closed out, into the application, just so, I mean, that was advised.
Can you bring those pictures up for us, please, Eric?
So it was approved by the ARB. It was built, but a CO was never issued because it didn't pass.
They didn't revegetate.
They didn't
They didn't
revegetate.
revegetate, but
So
apparently they did revegetate, but I don't think they've got the CO
we don't
yet.
have the CO.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so what happens is that when we talked to Ann, she said, get the ARB to approve the entire scope again so that I can renew your permit. And then
Renew the
approve-
building permit?
Yeah, because she said, if you give me the ARB approval, I can renew the permit and approve the dormer, like renew the building permit that it's open because it was never closed, right? For the dormer above the garage. And then I'll give you the one, the dormer over the second floor on the long wing.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be obtuse, but I'm really confused by this.
So basically for an extension of time. More or
An
less.
extension of time.
But I think.
For
at
an
this point, you
approval.
put in a new application for the same.
For the work that's already been done.
Already been done, so it's not technically.
That's
an
why it's
extension of time,
confusing.
But it's a new application for what was previously approved.
So they need approval?
The approval
for-
is valid for 3 years.
Okay, so, all right. So your approval expired, basically.
Correct.
And now, and you built what was built, but so we need to, it's so it's an extension of time. It's not.
But they're doing additional work, so they're doing a whole new.
Well, then I think we have to segregate it into two actions. I think there have to be two actions then.
well, Ann has
Right?
said that we could.
So the application is for, to renew the approval from 2012 for the 42-foot dormer extension on the attached garage and the
new
dormer addition on the south of main house area. So that is new.
Okay, here's, here's what makes this even more confusing. And I'm going to pass this down for the board. It's just the photographs and the drawings, is that what is shown in the architectural drawing for that area above the garage, the drawings don't match what is built. So my question is there new work that's now going to happen, or are the drawings just?
My apologies, yes. So the one dormer is gonna be extended so that one room, because the room inside, each is not functional the way they proposed it before. So there's gonna be an addition to that dormer. Let's see what elevation that could
So it's
be.
even more
It's
complicated.
on the east,
Well,
on
that's
the
why
east
I feel like
elevation.
it's two separate things.
Let's break it down.
I think we should, because it's too complicated. So I think what our advice to you is going to be, and what maybe we can act on tonight, unless
I
the
think that-
documentation does not support it.
It doesn't, so
Okay,
My suggestion to you would be that we, what you need is We need approval from us because your original approval for the 2012 work expired. So
Correct.
normally we consider that an extension of time. But because you're proposing new work, you're trying to bundle it all together. But that's not working for us in terms of our process. So
so
it's too much for us to lop in the new add-on, the new building proposal to what was previously proposed and built. So we need, and the plans don't seem to reflect that somehow. Is that correct?
Now,
There-
let me ask you this.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
the three issues then. So
Okay.
I mean, I guess then step one is the drawings are incomplete. First of all, they're not accurate. They're grossly inaccurate. All the windows, unless the owner plans to change most of the windows are the wrong size. Like, go to the other elevation. For example, what's up top, like just dimensionally, like it's shown as those two little dormers at the top. And I understand those aren't changing, but you have to be accurate, because we can't believe the drawing. See how they're more vertical than they are horizontal? Those windows up top, go back to the drawing. They're horizontal windows there. I
Right.
mean, I don't know what to believe of the drawings here. And all of the architectural elements there are not drawn. So the first thing is the architect needs to get out there and accurately draw what is there.
Existing.
And then we need existing elevations and we need proposed elevations.
Diane, did you have something you wanted to add?
So you would like existing,
Comments in red,
existing
right?
versus
But this makes
proposed?
everything so clear.
Both.
So
We wanna see
probably
both.
that, if that could go with the follow-up
With the
letter.
incomplete.
Well, that's up to
I
Frank.
mean, I don't want to do any
no,
more work and
no,
point out
no,
all the
no,
errors.
no, no,
So
no.
So who drew these drawings for you?
That was the architect.
at
Tina.
Hoplock?
Yeah.
Well, these aren't really architectural drawings. They're more like sketches. So
it's missing I'm sorry, to interrupt.
Go on.
It's
Yeah,
missing
I
the
mean,
chimney. Are we keeping the little pergola above the cupola above the garage?
No, that's going. That's why it's not shown.
Okay, so that needs to be depicted as an existing elevation, and if something's being demolished, dash it, do some bubble and
Like the
saying
bubble there on
to
the
be,
dormer. Yeah.
something to be demolished. Because I'm assuming then that the chimney's going to be demolished, is it?
The chimney is not going to be demolished.
Well, it's
no.
not on the plan. It's not on the elevation. So what we need is the exact representation of the building as it exists.
Okay.
And then the proposed work, superimposed on that or somehow indicated in relation to what exists.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Understood.
That includes like skylights that, I mean, you don't have to draw every single, like the dimensions of every trim board, but get it close enough to where it's reasonably accurate,
You need a before and after. Right now, you just are showing us sort of.
It's sort of a
after.
mix and match right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I.
So it's like, I
get
mean,
it,
are
yeah.
those windows up top, the little two dormers of the windows changing? Are all the windows like, are the architectural elements of like the cross hatch of the applied board, are those going? We gotta know.
Which ones? I'm sorry.
Like, do you see next to the window, it's like this
barn door.
barn door sort of
That
applique.
crisscross, yeah.
Is that being removed?
That's being removed. Yes.
So this needs to be spelled out and not just like a dormer here and a dormer there. This is because it's on an ag reserve. All the proposed changes need to be called out. So the easiest way to do this is to have an accurate current, existing elevations
versus
and proposed. And if something's being removed, like a cupola or a chimney or a dormer, that should be dashed out and called out, like to be demolished.
We'll send you a follow-up letter that has some of this information on it.
Okay.
Okay. Because we can't really act on it tonight in its
No,
present
no,
form.
totally fair. Totally
Okay.
fair.
Did
Awesome.
you have anything
Now-
else for us, or did you want to? say
So
something?
where did we end up with this issue of what was a failed CO inspection? And is it going to be easier for the applicant to get the CO? Then they would have to do a CO inspection, then come redo this.
What, first we have to reapprove the 2012 approval because that expired.
The extension.
And we have to approve an extension of time for that approval.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying we need to break it out into two things. They need an extension of time for that approval, and then they can submit these other changes.
I think that they could just make it all part of a new application. The board could consider.
That's what I was told by.
That's what you were trying to do.
Content of the prior approval. If it's, there's no material alteration for that component of the application. It's still, prior precedent that the board had previously approved.
Okay, well, that's fine. It feels illogical to me, but I understand that because it's an 11-year-old approval. But so you're,
I think we should keep this as one application because
Okay.
other applications where the board attempted to divide it up into multiple applications for one property, it got confusing. So I think for the sake of clarity, it's better to do all this in a single application.
all right, well,
And is that
So it
possible
will
with the
go all
extension?
as,
It's not it's just going to be a new application.
That's what Ann is saying. It's better to just do it all as a new application than to try to split it out.
Yes.
Correct?
But it's still, precedent to the extent that it's what's there is what was approved.
okay, well, so we'll send you a follow-up letter. We'll sort it out on our end and let you know. It sounds like one application, which is what you were endeavoring to do, but it got hung up because your elevations were confusing.
understood.
Okay, so if you can get that part attended to and properly detailed, then you can resubmit that, and we'll hopefully be able to reapprove the 2012 work that's already been conducted and review the proposal for the new stuff.
That's fair.
And it would, I think, help the board, and I'm saying this because hopefully the architect is going to watch the video of this to get all the list of this stuff, that on the existing elevations, the existing elevation is going to show what's in the photographs, the as-built. So it's going to help the board to call out what was approved with the 2012 approval and built.
Yeah, I don't know that we have a record of that, but
Okay, so we went to add a note that this section over the garage was previously approved. So we would just add a note on that.
Circle what exactly? I mean, was it the entire dormer, the entire gable, or was it just the dormer above the existing roof line?
I think we could probably pull the previous
So you-
application.
Right.
well, maybe.
Well, I don't want
Is
to
whether
start
yourself-
doing forensics on
Yeah,
it.
no, that's
That's the
fair.
job of the
Okay,
architect
no,
to do.
I think that's easy enough.
To have-
Right, yeah. But I don't want to, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's easy enough.
okay.
Because to the existing work, we're just adding a little section so I can separate and hatch differently, like whatever was done and what's gonna be added to that original work. And then that, basically the proposed work on that dormer is gonna match the hatch that we're gonna do for the new dormer over the second floor on the longer side, south
Okay.
side.
Can I ask the new roof? So it's going to, you're going to put a standing seam roof
Correct.
over the new addition on the long wing and the new dormers. What about the rest of the roof? Is that
The
staying?
whole house would be the new roof, yeah. would be the
Okay,
new
so
roof.
that has to be called out because it's currently not. So,
Okay,
okay.
definitely do that.
And last thing, if there's new lighting, because it's on, all lighting has to be called out. Any new fixtures have to be dark sky compliant, and we need the cut sheet for it.
And they have to be depicted on the elevations. If there's any outdoor lighting, has to be depicted on the elevations.
Understood. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right.
Well,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
All
Thanks a lot.
right. You're welcome.
Right, have a
Thank
good
you. Yeah, that was an adventure.
Tangled web.
Okay, number 7. 8 Sayers Path LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-196-01-8.1. Jameson is here. Welcome, Jameson. Nice to see you. This is Esperanza's. We have a letter that was submitted that
That's floating here. Yes.
yeah, that was submitted today. I don't know what time, but earlier in the day. I think you got a copy of it, right?
Yep.
So I'm just going to read it into the record quickly. It's sent to us by Carolyn Logan Gluck. Dear Chairperson County, as members of the Architectural Review Board, as a resident of Wainscott, I'm writing in regard to the proposal to construct a new resident at 8 Sayers Path, Wainscott, 17 tax map number 300-196-128.1. Even though this project has already been reviewed several times for the ARB, I hope you will consider this brief comment. Sayers Path is an old street in Wainscott that traditionally was lined by small homes and cottages. Over the years, owners made additions to these, expanding without destroying the overall impression of the homes or their relationship to the landscape. Recently, however, there's been a trend to replace these traditional homes with new, more massive houses that along with an array of additional auxiliary structures, garages, pool houses, covered patios, guest houses, formed compounds out of keeping with the tradition of Sayers Path. In addition, scores of trees have been taken down, also changing the largely forested character of the area. Not only was a significant swath of trees removed from 8 Sayers Path a few years ago, but plans for a huge home were proposed that were not at all in keeping with the neighborhood because of the materials and massive impression made. It is a shame that in spite of revisions, the overbearing impression remains the same. What is permissible, quote, as of right, unquote, is not always, quote, right, unquote, for a community. I hope the ARB will use its considerable powers to encourage the applicant to consider its proposal with these observations in mind. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Carolyn Logan Gluck. Okay. So we got that in the record. All right. Now, Esperanza, you're on.
Okay. I'm going to go by your letter that you recently submitted because, I mean, the files for this are, as you know, extensive, and I've been combing through them. But to restate, this application is for a new 2-story residence, garage, pool, and associated pool patio decking. The lot totals 74,168 square feet, which is 1.703 acres, with 6,861 square feet of coverage proposed, where 8,399 square feet is allowed, and 7,243 square feet GFA proposed, where 9,017 square feet is allowed. The lot is zoned A2 in the agricultural overlay district. And I think that would be where I would say what is allowed by code gets the additional layer of review from this board, which is why we've been here for so long, right? Throughout this whole process, we know there have been inconsistencies, and even just in reviewing the more recent documentation, the updated survey that was submitted, which is dated or was revised November 2022, in fact, actually says that the lot size is 71,708 square feet. So I just wanted to point that out to you because then, you start getting lost in these numbers and it becomes frustrating as I review even earlier surveys, and the very first one ever submitted doesn't even have the lot size. So it's baffling to me how that happens. But regardless, sticking to the agricultural overlay district principle, we have been focusing on mass and scale. And for me, also the placement of this proposed residence and other structures on the property. And in the context of this neighborhood. And just to also restate, this on the western end of this property abuts a 14+ acre agricultural reserve area. So that's important to point out. It also has, this particular property has a 50-foot wide scenic easement. And it also, this applicant owns the recreational reserved area, which is situated just to the north. And in having that, the applicant is needs to include an access easement on the property to that recreational reserve area. So going back to your letter, though, I know that the last meeting that we had, there was a lot of focus on the redirection of the design, which moved the garage from the main mass or volume of that residence to a structure that's perpendicular and east of the main residence and is connected to it with a breezeway or connector, as it was called. And that connector was the focus of much discussion to reduce its height and its size. And so referring again to your letter, and I don't think we have these plans in the files here, but the height of the breezeway's roof line has been lowered and the width has been narrowed on both sides, north and south, which breaks up the overall line on those elevations. And we do have an updated digital rendering of that, if you could pull it up so everybody could see it. And we can pass these around because this is the recent one, and this is what was there before. So I looked at the elevations, and unfortunately, I don't see the actual height of the breezeway or connector, nor do I see the height of the garage indicated. I know that the main residence portion is at the maximum height, which is 32. So if there's a chance of you answering those questions, or if we can look at the plans or elevations and find out, and I'd be happy to have that information. Because you do indicate in your letter that the applicant lowered the overall roof height of the garage. But I don't know what that is.
Right, that was an original change, right? Like prior to the last meeting, when we came in, which I think is that one. So this is not our most recent.
Yeah, that's the earlier one.
This is the August. The feedback prior to that meeting was lower the height. So that was when we lowered the height. Then between August and tonight is when we lowered the breezeway further and narrowed it.
We don't have numbers for what it is, what it was lowered.
I'll do that
from
right now.
I want to apologize for asking this, but can I get a quick recap of where we were? Because it's been 6 months with this project. I'm sorry for asking, but did we vote on this?
No.
Okay, so there's been no resolution, just for the record, there's been no resolution. We have not voted on this, so it's
Feedback.
it's still in just the same pending application.
Yep.
Okay.
Still in the work session phase.
Okay. So this,
Yeah, do you want me? So I'm Jameson McWilliams. From
sorry.
Crash McWilliams Law Group at 10 Pantago. I represent the property owner and the applicant, which is 8 Sayers Path LLC. This has been many, many months in the making. To get here, the last time we were here was August. The board did not vote on it. We got the follow-up incomplete letter from August, and it took us a little while to get back in front of you all. Just to clarify, the first point about the lot area versus lot size. I'm not going to defend. It's on the survey, the Walbridge survey. Lot area and lot size are two different calculations. So actually, if you look at the survey in the body of the lot one, it says the square footage is 74,168 square feet. The lot area is the 71,708 square feet because it excludes the proposed access easement.
What is the difference?
I'm just
Yeah,
pointing
and
out an inconsistency because I don't see it here. Sorry.
It's
I don't
because
see
the
it.
easement isn't factored into this.
Is that?
Yeah.
So, and basically, and I asked the surveyor that point because I wanted to be careful with the numbers. And also because there is a question about the easement. He offers both numbers because there's a 50-foot wide scenic easement already. Then there is this proposed access to the rec reserve. It is not opened yet, and it may never be opened if the proposal to the rec reserve never moves forward. There is no pending.
What's a rec reserve?
Okay,
The
so-
recreational reserve.
So
What is that? Who uses that? Any member?
well, right now, my client owns both properties in common ownership. When this subdivision occurred, they created 10 residential lots were lot one and 3 reserves. So there's the ag reserve, there's a recreational reserve, and then there's a buffer. So if you see here, so we own this, someone else owns this, and there's the ag reserve. It's just a creation of the planning board at the time. There are specific covenants and restrictions burdening that rec reserve, which my client happens to own. But one of the things it says is it can never be improved with the residents, that it is reserved for the 10 owners of the subdivision to be used in common for recreational purposes, if and only if they go to the planning board to get site plan approval for some type of approved recreational use. It has to be a town code approved use. And if and when that occurs, my client's residential lot one is burdened by the requirement of providing access to that lot. Actually would be regardless of the fact that they own both. If they sold just the rec reserve for some reason, they're still burdened by that access. Right now, there would be providing access to nothing, so that it's not part of the plan. But as you all know, or would be familiar with the planning board process, if and when they had any plans for the rec reserve, the planning board would consider what is an appropriate width of the access. And I mean, since we're here, we're here in the.
So, yes, it is subject to planning board approval, but the town code says that the board is not supposed to approve anything that's in violation of covenants and restrictions. Specifically, I think that even though it's proposed, that proposal violates the covenants and restrictions for 20-foot wide access.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. We're getting to that. There's a second issue here.
It's jumping ahead a little.
Yes, there's a second issue here, which is that the surveyor, in my opinion, did make a mistake. I asked this access that we're discussing, the 16 feet should say 20 feet. So that's a change we're going to have to make anyway. We're talking about the little hatched blue area landward of the 50-foot scenic easement. Because in one of the covenants, and I actually take a sort of exception to, I don't think it's an easement. The 50-foot scenic easement is an easement. That's an easement document that burdens the property that's recited as an easement.
It's a covenant and restriction.
Right, so it provides access. It's just like how it tells us that to get access to my client's lot one is they have a shared driveway up to 50 feet.
Yes.
And then you veer off. And just like in the subject driveway, you can see the covenants and restrictions provide for 20 feet, but whether or not you clear and use the whole 20 feet is sort of in, the planning process. But I'm saying the 16 feet there should say 20. And I've already called the surveyor and we're making that change.
Great. Thanks.
I'm not sure if this is in our scope, but in the scenic easement, you're showing plantings,
Yes. and
Like
that was another thing.
hedges. So can you do that in the scenic easement?
It's on
Like
the
screen the,
plan. They're like Leland
Shouldn't that just
cypresses
be
or something.
not
being
cleared?
Proposed. It shouldn't be cleared. It should be left in its natural state.
Right.
Right. So, and that would have
And it is
seemed
in its
for
natural
the
state
rec,
now.
rec access too as well.
With
Say
some
that second
garbage.
part again, and the rec access.
I would think for the reserve access, 16 foot, which becomes a 20-foot wide. So you've got your 50-foot scenic easement, and then you have a 20-foot rec reserve access, which I don't know if that's supposed to be open, but I would suggest to the owners to consider, like if they're going to screen their house, plan appropriately in terms of the gate location and driveway to allow for that in case they can't plant in those access areas.
Yeah, they definitely can't plant in the 50-foot scenic easement. There is no language
Right.
that provides any limitations within the access to the rec reserve in my review of the covenants and restrictions. But I agree with you, it would be a waste of any
It does give,
proposed plantings if there was plans in the future to open it, because that's, you would have to remove them.
Was there something else that, or are we pausing
Yeah.
for?
Are we pausing
what are we
for a
doing?
comment from
Yeah,
you,
I was,
council?
I was looking at the.
Okay.
proposed plan. That's within the same, what is that plan with additional planning?
Yeah,
It looks to be, yes.
I don't know what LC stands for, to be honest.
Leland Cypress.
Oh, thank you.
I think I saw it written someplace maybe in a key code or something. I don't know what you call it. And so I think to me, those are things that need to be considered also just with the placement of this residence and any other structure. But going back, so I would like to know what the heights are, that these roof heights have been lowered to. You indicate that the garage doors, the number of garage doors were reduced pursuant to the CNRs, which is reflective of the CNRs stating that a garage can only have up to 2 vehicles, 2 pleasure cars, as they put it. So what I would like to know is, because this goes to the question of the overall roof height, to me, if I look at the progression of this application, and it's changed quite a bit from the beginning, but essentially what has happened is you've gone from having a main residence with an attached garage incorporated to this garage that's perpendicular to the main residence. And in my view, the mass remains the same. The mass and scale remain the same. It's just sort of it's distributed differently. So where before you had 20-foot wide setbacks, which is what it needs to be now, the minimum, thank you. They're now 28.6 on each side. So, but that happened because the garage was moved to the front. So I guess the point I'm making is that there's been no substantial addressing of the mass and scale of this structure.
Even with the new changes to the breezeway, which was one of the main subjects of the last.
Perhaps
discussion.
I'm one voice, perhaps other board members might see this as a change that addresses the mass and scale. To me, this continues to be, so we gained 16 feet of side yard, but it's just the mass has moved to the front yard. But I wanted to point out, which I thought was interesting in reference to this, that from what I could see, so in 2020, the proposed lot coverage was 6,179. when this came back to us in March of 2021, it was 7,991. So it actually went up despite the fact that we kept asking for a reduction, addressing mass and scale. In June of 2021, it went down a little bit to 7,473. But really the number I'm fixated on is the minimal difference between 2020, which was actually 6,179 square feet. In 2022, it became 6,861 square feet. So we actually went up.
This is a gross floor area?
That's
Or
lot coverage.
lot-
No, the gross floor area is 7,243 square feet.
And allowable is what?
8 something.
So 7,200 proposed. That excludes the garage, correct?
Correct.
Because the GFA would exclude the garage.
7243 proposed where
9,017
is allowed.
Is the breezeway included with the GFA?
I don't calculate the GFAs.
It's a pretty important question in terms
Okay.
of massing.
Well, your attorney
So-
said no.
Okay, but I'm saying, well, it has to do with conditioned space. So I would just say, whenever someone comes before the board to know what is included in particularly an application like this,
Sure,
to
I'll get,
know
I'll get
what-
it for you.
what of the structure is part of the GFA work calculation and what is not.
So if it's a mudroom, that's not livable space, living space. I would consider that to be.
If this is technically the garage, and the garage is not, if the breezeway is technically the garage, unconditioned space.
It's not unconditioned. There's program inside.
No, condition means from a
What's that?
thermal.
Breezeway.
So is it thermally part of,
I think
is
it
it
is.
heated and cooled?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's
It has a
conditioned.
mudroom.
I think the garage is too, isn't
I'm
it?
asking about the breezeway.
Right, I'm speaking to the.
It says it's a mudroom
Mudroom.
with closets and benches and
Mhm.
cubbies.
Yeah, it's like a kit room for the strollers and such.
This doesn't make any sense then. Is there a wall with?
Yeah, here, Frank, here.
Yeah, there is. There's a door,
This is the
wall.
garage. And this is the mudroom, so.
But that's not the breezeway.
The
The
breezeway.
breezeway is that. So that's what I'm saying. The
But they
breezeway-
actually, their logo cancels out whatever is going on in that breezeway because they put it over the plans.
What are you looking at?
Here.
Actually, the next sheet, page 8. So. Okay, so
Looks like it's all open.
it's all open, so that's technically not part of GFA. That's excluded. So the breezeway is not included in the GFA calc.
But it could be. Here, see how this is open, this is open.
That's right there.
Yeah.
See, there's the breezeway. Right there, and it's in part of the garage.
It's really not though.
But it's all, there's no wall here, so.
What I'm saying
There
is,
is a wall. There's a door, in fact. I'm pretty sure.
why is it open?
I don't think so.
It's open here.
No,
There's no
I
door.
saw another elevation that I felt like it did. So
It's open.
Yeah,
My point is.
Can you
for
enlarge
the
that for
record,
us, Eric? So that
That
I think
it's,
that's.
it's not part of GFA, and so the
Is that what
building
we're looking
mass
at?
is
No.
more than the GFA.
But it could be closed in a second.
Yeah.
there was another, I think,
exactly.
another page that reflected that one.
Okay.
I had a question about the attic and the.
Yeah, and that was another question I had. Yeah.
Let's let, can I,
Oh, yeah, big time. Who has a garage with a,
Breezeway that's freezing. With doors into it.
But I thought even the garage was,
heated?
Yeah.
You have to look at the.
So I would like to know if the GFA calculation includes the garage and the breezeway.
sure, I'll get that information to you.
And I also want to state, I do not want to hear the owner to come here and say that this is held up her life and this is 6 months ago.
okay.
So
Keep going, it's
Okay.
okay.
Let's just confine our remarks to the.
At the
matter at
last
hand.
meeting, I had these numbers and I presented them on the record. I'm just like looking through my notes to answer your original question about the lowering of the garage height. I don't want to misstate it because I didn't review that specifically for tonight, but I do have the notes. So I think that I have here, prior to tonight, we were here on August 11th, and prior to August 11th, we were here on May 12th. So the plans for the May 12th meeting showed the overall height of the garage, and at that point, this was one solid mass, was 28 feet, 0 inches. Sorry, I'm just making sure because this is not my handwriting. And it was 68 feet long. And then the August 11th plans lowered the height of the, it says lower garage roof to 20 feet.
220.
And,
But if, sorry, go ahead.
and high garage roof to 26 feet. So that must have meant at the time that the
The connector is 20 feet, the garage is 26.
correct.
Which looks right.
And now
Yeah.
the connector, I can get you that number. The overall height of the garage portion, which has the cars, has not been further lowered.
So
Between
it's at
August 11th
26.
and today.
So it was reduced 2 feet from the
Correct.
May 2022. Okay.
One issue I'm having with this, the massing and scale of this building is, again, can I ask for one more time? Because it is important. What is the maximum allowable GFA and what is the GFA proposed here?
9,017 is the maximum allowable. And the proposed is 7,243.
Including.
The issue I'm having is that the upstairs of the garage and the breezeway, I believe, are not considered part of the GFA. Therefore, it reads as habitable
To the massing.
space.
Yes, yeah,
So it is,
right.
it is giving the impression that it's a larger house than 7,200 square feet and just like a small garage.
Is the second floor of the garage open? Is it open?
No.
Yeah, it's an attic space.
But there's very expensive windows in
The
that attic space.
dormers,
And
exactly.
the picture window on the short end of the garage, I mean, it looks like
habitable space.
it looks like the garage could be made into living quarters, first floor, second floor in a nanosecond.
But you guys can't presume.
Okay.
No,
Right, well,
but it
is
does
it-
to
But it
me go
does-
to a sort of a,
But it reads
Reads.
as habitable space.
Is it conditioned space? I mean,
No.
it's not, you're sure?
Well, presumably the garage, I mean,
I don't
one
know
could
the
make a
answer to that.
But the
conditioned
breezeway, wouldn't
garage.
the breezeway
It's not.
be-
It's, if you look at the plans,
Okay,
page 8, which
I believe
is,
you, I believe you.
page 6 of this, you'll see that it's spatially contiguous.
Yeah. No, I get that. That's, but my thinking was if that's a breezeway was meant to be a mudroom and there are benches and so forth
Right.
there, it would
You
be
would-
odd not to have that space condition.
exactly.
And that's my point. So, and given that it is contiguous into the garage, my question is all of that space conditioned? It might be. Some people heat their garages. That's not an unheard of thing.
I would be surprised, we'll have to hear, but I would be surprised if that's included in 7,200 square feet.
Right. No, I'm asking it as a separate question. I understand what you're saying. I don't, not trying to confuse the issue. I'm just,
It's the same house, I mean, some numbers have been rearranged, some things have been called different things. If you look at those previous and current, it's more or less the same house, the same presence, the same sort of overbearing appearance.
Yeah.
Well, you do realize there's dining seats for 34 people.
No, I didn't.
Really?
If you count up all the different tables inside and out,
Oh,
34 people can sit down and have a meal.
All right.
well,
that's
but
not. We're
that's not
not.
our.
Section of the
yeah.
code do we
can
write
do
here?
Well,
Yeah.
That's not yet. That's not our purview, but I think yeah, let's get back to mass and scale and the sizes, we're permitted to discuss.
Just to get back to the use of the space above the garage, I know that we also spoke about that at the last meeting, and of course, I had the benefit of the architect here so that should be in the record also about how high the ceilings were, and there were two things. Right, in the finished portion where the cars go in, so I believe that when you look at the overall height that you couldn't, I mean, I guess technically anybody could finish anything, but the ceiling height actually in that storage area is low. The reason that he described lowering it to the extent that he did, which I thought at the time was discussed and sort of understood from the architectural standpoint, was keeping the ratio of the roof heights so that when you're looking at it straight on, that it still, made sense with the way that the gables are on the house.
Okay, so where are we?
Can we see that elevation from the rear, the way
Which one?
the garage lines up? I forget which,
Back
if
of the
that's the
house?
south elevation or the
North.
north. Yeah,
This is the highway, yes.
yeah. So this is where I think at the last meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, and I will say that if you had the benefit of being able to compare the two, and like I said, two submissions ago.
We have it here, Jameson.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the height, the roof was higher of the garage and it went all the way across. So
Yes.
it had been lowered, and this was lowered again, and actually, I think did a service to the overall design, because now those windows on those 4 windows across are visible now because the height was lowered again.
Right.
And what you can't tell, this was a question at the last meeting also, whether that was jogged in, right? Now we
Right.
know that it was
Right.
jogged in again.
Right.
I think it's 4 feet back on this side and then 2 feet in on the other, which. Oh, no, it's
4
more
feet
than
on
that.
this, on the
It's
garage
more than that,
side?
I'm sorry. Originally it was 24 feet wide overall, the garage straight to the house. And now the breezeway is 12 feet wide and the garage remains at 24 feet wide. So it's 12, there has been a 12-foot reduction in the width of.
The width.
Yes, which is not evident from this elevation, because what you can't see is that, what I'm talking about is this being jogged in from here.
Steps in, yeah.
Steps.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I wanted to say something about the second story on that garage, because from that elevation, it still looks big to me. It's still, that roof line, that massing on the roof still looks a little disproportionate to me.
It looks as high as most of the house.
It does, yeah.
It looks that way,
it
even though
looks
it's
that way,
not.
even
But
though
that's
it's not.
I think you're taking my point. That's my point. The massing. And I'm
the
sure
addition
that's
of the
because you
dormers.
lowered the breezeway,
In part,
but,
yeah.
but it's still got a.
How about lowering the garage roof? Yeah.
Well, that's, yeah,
That's
and the
where I
addition
was
of the
headed.
dormers is also like, makes it even more prominent, but
Right.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, it's okay, but there's still. It still presents to me as like a 3-story house, and it's just the height of the whole thing, the
Well, it's
massing,
like the max, yeah.
the massing of the whole thing just feels.
Massive looking.
Yes, it's massive looking, as Diane just said. I don't know. I feel like we're parsing out little pieces of it by dealing with the garage and the breezeway, which I think is an improvement. I think that's definitely better. I'm not sure it's where it should be yet. Doesn't feel like that to me. but just these big gable, facing gables with those, shingled peaks, it just looks.
I do just want for the record, because I actually don't know if I've raised this point specifically because I just got this calculation from the surveyor, but the front door, just to visualize it, maybe this rendering, this angle doesn't do us any service. I mean, we were trying to show,
Right.
how it all lined up. But, this does look like we're close and we're low.
Yeah.
But the front door is 188 feet from the front property line.
Okay.
So we are set back.
Right.
In the back porch, the covered porch, so not even the back door, but the porch is 210 from the back property line.
Right.
Because we did discuss that the easement has to maintain, its natural vegetation.
Right.
That whatever vegetation says it's proposed in there, obviously we're not doing.
Right.
We don't have to debate the mass and scale in terms of it's in your jurisdiction. We can discuss that. I'm just saying for visibility purposes, we are far from the road.
No, I get it. I take the point.
You're far from Sayers Path, but you're quite close to 27. This thing is.
Well, and also the neighbors, I have to say.
Well, the neighbors on the other side, but this is a loom from 27.
Yeah.
Well, Eric
I
could
do
probably
have
take a
pictures.
measurement, but there's an unimproved portion of the road bed is what it looks like north of that first lot. Then that lot's 100 feet wide. Then the lot that we own also is 2.2 acres. Obviously, it's a triangle.
Yeah.
And then we have the code, the setbacks.
Eric, I have pictures of that. So if you
Okay.
wanted to look
Yep.
for them.
So by my calculation, you're at least 200 feet from the property, the boundary, which, I think that there's a portion of the road that's, the road bed doesn't go right up to that.
This is what you're
This
indicating.
is Sayers Path, right?
This is from Sayers Path.
Yes.
Yes.
Who's the
But I
file?
have other pictures that are from 27. That's just the property. And just so you could see also the proximity of the neighbors to the south. And then there should be
Those are the four that I got.
four other pictures.
I think I did.
Okay.
It's the, thank you, Julie.
Yeah, I would believe that the neighbors, although the placement, if we could look at an aerial.
That's,
Go ahead.
sorry, that's
Okay.
from the corner of Town Line North.
No, Sayers Path. and-
This is from the corner of
Oh,
Town
across.
Line North, facing the property.
Landscaping plan depicted showed, and then we got rid of the pool house, but it had almost, on either side of the pool overhanging pergola or patios that were clearly, above.
I didn't look at the website. That's not part of the application.
Okay, but it's just, there is something on the survey application that does indicate that it's.
Yeah, what page, where are you on? Where are you?
SP one.
The site plan?
Yeah, the site plan. And
Oh, no.
the,
I think the site plan seems to be misleading us too.
Hey guys, this is Matt at LTV. I just want to let you know we had a brief internet outage. So just
Oh,
that-
that accounts for it.
Let me see if if the architect emailed me.
Sun
back.
Lodge.
Sun Lodge, where are you though?
I think that is what I saw on the.
The Sun Ledge is in the pool.
The sun ledge is like a nice
a
little
little-
built-in.
Little platform where
it's a
you can be in
seat.
3 inches of water and lounge away.
All right. So there's
Like a
no
lizard.
overhang.
How
bridge
refreshing.
or-
No, nothing that would require building permits, as far as I know.
Oh, it does say though, on this SP one, it does say proposed cabana.
Yes. What is that?
I don't know. There's no proposed cabana there. The words should be removed.
And it points, yeah, it's just
To reduce this.
in that area.
I think they're referring to the area around the.
Yeah.
Well, it just says proposed cabana, where then other places say proposed pool patio, proposed pool patio. It actually says proposed cabana. It almost seems to indicate like it would go,
Just read.
I don't even know if it would go right there or at the corner of the pool, but it does happen on that.
I think we're gonna have to be very specific.
No, I understand.
So,
that. I agree.
I mean, I think
I agree.
if I go back to the one of the early applications, you know, and here we have been requesting that this
Yes, here too.
come down in mass and the scale of it be reduced. The GFA has reduced maybe 400 square feet. I mean, that's it. And I understand you're saying the zoning code allows for, but again, we're aiming to preserve what is the character of this neighborhood, which still is to a great extent not reflected here.
Just to state for the board, what is driving a good part of the volume of this house is the ceiling heights of 10 feet on the first floor, and the bedrooms upstairs have 10-foot ceilings.
Basement too.
And I mean, that's below grade, but in terms of focusing on the volume above grade, it's 10-foot ceilings on the second floor. And that doesn't include if there are any vaulted ceilings. The family room is 26 feet to the peak, perhaps. Just volumetrically, it's quite large. Part of this, what has driven the size of this house up has been this two things, as I can see. The ceiling heights, well, the second floor ceiling height specifically. I'm looking at a drawing of page 13, and part of it is the foundation, is the first floor is actually substantially higher than grade. So it starts out rather high. It's not like, I don't know if any effort has been made to bring the finished floor down closer to grade. And in terms of one member's comment about it appearing like a third 3-story house, I can sympathize with an argument about that. If you look at the entry stair tower there, it's divided into 3 or window bays, and the upper one gives the impression of like another half floor visually. Not saying that it is, but it gives the impression of it being more than a 2-story house, that there might actually be a third floor in the attic.
Although that lower one is pretty low, right? Like it's halfway up the front door. So do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
there's 3, but the first one.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that element, but you're right. Now that you're pointing that out, that visually does read as a, it's one of the elements I've not
That
been
it gives visual mass to the building.
from the beginning.
Well, it's been hard to articulate what needs to change, but to my mind, it's the appearance that it's 3 stories.
So the height.
Yeah, the overall height with respect to the massing, and I think that Frank,
Height of the garage.
yes, in the height of the garage, but I think Frank has really articulated in a good and specific way that the reason it feels that way is because the ceilings are so high and because the first floor begins so much higher off the grade. So I'm wondering if there isn't some way to to reduce
see that.
those ceiling heights and bring the overall,
This one.
it's just the massing, I think. I don't object to the design in general. I think the materials are okay. The color seems good. It's just really big.
It's very
It's
grand.
just, and when we look at, I recognize that this is property that was purchased, but it's ag overlay land, and we are charged with maintaining the vista. Now, there's, an argument can be made, ag overlay land that's got a house on it is never going to look like ag overlay land again, exactly. But I think we need to do what we can to minimize the impact of that, of any structures on those lands. And this is still, to my mind, just too massive.
I mean, if the applicant were wondering how to reduce the mass and scale, one thing to explore, if it looked difficult to get approval from this board for it because of the mass and scale, is to look at the ceiling heights, 10 and 10, and said, okay, if those were to come down, it probably reduce the overall volume of the house, size of it.
Same
I'm
with
not telling the applicant to do this. I'm just pointing
No,
it
it's a
out
suggestion.
that
It's
10 and 10 is considered petite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
And
those are
it's
grand.
excavating also like 11 feet of prime ag soil for a basement.
Man, that's not great. That's not great.
And lowering the garage roof.
Yes, lowering the garage through.
So, I mean, there's some suggestions.
Yeah.
But
Let's,
since we're talking about mass and scale, I just want to like fully go there if we're gonna go there, right? And this is why really
Sure.
that where this all has, lived and died is this argument. I just want to make sure that when we're talking mass and scale, we look at all of the factors, right? And I spelled that out in my letter, that we do have some guidance in terms of interpreting what's in the code where it says, upon study and advice, you can draw your opinions to the mass scale and all the other criteria. That we do look to, some case law that does suggest, we can't just look at this narrowly in terms of how the mass and scale feels, especially from that one rendering on this one lot, that we have to look at the neighborhood. And that's one, how the dwelling relates to the property itself. I think we got there, right? I mean, and we have different sort of opinions on, how you can look at the size of the lot, the overall size, and compare it to the coverage, for example. Those are, tangible numbers we can look at. I have mentioned before in my letter, but it's worth mentioning again, in my opinion, that this is the largest lot in this subject subdivision. It's kind of an interesting one. I don't know, what the board was thinking back then, but there are 10 residential lots plus the 3 reserves, and they all are of differing size. And perhaps if the board at the time thought that every house had to be of the same size, the lots would have been the same. This one is double in size to some of the other lots. So when you look at mass and scale, it is really, it's a ratio in some respects. So when you look at the how the dwelling relates to the property itself, we can look at that. And in my letter, I did then offer calculations of how that, we know those numbers, right? We went over them and they have been confusing and there are a lot of numbers to compare. But then really to do a thorough review, you have to look at how the proposed dwelling relates to the surrounding properties. And that's where you get into how the overall coverage of this lot compared to the overall size of this lot. That is a number that you can compare to some of the other lots and the overall size of those lots compared to the coverage of those lots. And the numbers, the percentages are actually close. And, that may mean nothing to the board, but because one of the criteria is how the proposed dwelling relates to the surrounding properties, I think that that's important to point out. Then there's the third criteria is how the proposed dwelling relates to the neighborhood. And this is, not necessarily subjective, but the neighborhood means different things to different people. Is it all of Wainscott? Probably not. Is it just the lots in this subdivision? Maybe not. Actually, if you're on the other side of the subdivision where the entrance to Kilmore Farm is, you may not even feel like you're in the same neighborhood. Is it just going down Sayers? Is it just to, is it just the properties to the left or to the right? But if we want to talk mass and scale, in my opinion, I think it is important to we have to look at all of this then. And because that's what the guidance suggests that we do, the case law that sort of interprets mass and scale. And I think it does become interesting when you look, for example, if you look at that sheet 5 of the zoning map and you really see that this is kind of an unusual neighborhood. This isn't just small lots and this is another small lot and this is a big house on a small lot. The lots in the subdivision are A2. Directly below it is A5. Those are very big lots. But across the street is B. Those are very small lots. On the same side of Sayers going south, you have A, although some of them are very undersized for the zoning. There's like spot zoning where little lots are carved out. There's maxed out lots, where the lot is small, but they're 100% covered or they're over coverage, but the lot is small. So the house feels small when you compare it to this house. But, if I think it's important if we're going to, say mass and scale, that I just wanted to say all of that there is a lot here.
Yes.
And I respect, what you're saying about
take your
this
point.
house from
Yes.
that, from that angle, but
We take the point. We take the point.
Is this the
Yes.
largest house in the neighborhood?
no.
No.
There's a larger house
There's one.
The modern
which is
house that's further down?
sale, yeah,
Sale forever.
just outside of this subject
It's a very
subdivision.
different
Yeah,
property and house altogether.
yes.
But if you consider a modern house, I'm not saying that it's diminutive because I don't have a picture of that house, but a modern house generally has a flat roof, correct?
That
So-
one,
It's a sort of very strange,
it's not what you think.
it's totally unexpected.
Phantasmagoria.
We could zoom in and.
All right, we won't go there.
I would have already brought it up because this property, quite frankly, is wild. It's wild compared to what we're proposing. There's a tennis court. There are a lot of structures. It's tall, it's sprawling.
Right.
It's hidden though.
But it's all very hidden, but I would
And
go
closer to the
more
road than ours is proposed.
to your point of this is the largest lot, but if we look at in this subdivision,
Yeah.
and then I'll get to the neighborhood. In this subdivision, there are two slightly smaller lots. One is 71,000 square feet. The other is 70,000 square feet. And those dwellings, they're 2-story dwellings, are roughly, 27 and 3,000 square feet each. So
Which ones are those?
that's lot,
Because I
lot
pulled all
9
the
and lot
property
10.
cards. Okay, lot 9 and lot 10.
So,
Yeah,
and then
that's-
as for the neighborhood, you can drive down Sayers Path and you get a sense of that neighborhood. The sense for me is not something like of this scale, period. And the fact is, this is farm country traditionally, so a large piece of land did not demand to yield, as they say nowadays, a large house.
It was used for a different purpose.
So, yeah.
Right.
So that's the maintenance of character that I think we're trying to.
Yeah, we're
preserve.
charged.
Yeah,
with.
I don't
Okay.
think any of the lots, small or large now, are being used, for agricultural use, if that's what you're suggesting.
I'm not indicating
Well,
that. I'm saying
no,
a
it's-
character of the.
Yeah,
of the
and
area.
just how more of it was unbuilt than built. I think that was the point.
Yeah.
So, if I don't mean to rush us because I know this has been a long slog, but if you don't have any more questions, I think we can, could you have something more you want to say? Does any other board
I don't
member have
know what
anything
else
else
to
they'd
say
like to add?
except-
Diane, would you like to add anything?
Well, I think we've said it all before. I think it's the location is very imposing. It's going to be very visible. And it is it sort of screams bigness. Hamptons.
And it's a corner lot. That's what I think.
Yeah.
You're going to see it from two roads.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right, which is another
Which may have been why it
It's
was
another
bigger when
factor.
the subdivision went in, because they knew it was a difficult lot and they wanted to make it a little bit bigger to make it more appealing.
Right.
Right, or that they're going to be burdening them with that
Right.
easement also, which is
Right.
supposed to be for
And
common use.
just so you know, the original house that burned down several years ago was just 2,400 square feet.
Yeah, so that's what the community's used to. Okay.
That's what the neighbors were used to seeing. That's what.
Okay.
The one I do want to just say, because we did raise it, and this is a good visual for me, is when we were saying how close it would be to the neighboring properties, and I'll get you that dimension, but I anticipated that question, which is why I got the measurements from the other ones, but the surveyor couldn't do that for me quickly.
Mhm.
But when you look at the proposed placement of the house compared to, it is centrally located.
Yeah,
on the
no,
lot.
that's
It
clear.
isn't
Yes.
right up
Right.
against the reserve, which is
Right.
how this one is, because this is burdened by that 50
Right.
foot too. And it's not all the way to the back.
Right.
To the extent that we are not, and we're certainly not intentionally.
Because you have
Yeah, no,
almost
I
2 acres to
understand.
play with.
Yeah,
That
no.
person with
Right.
the easement
it-
doesn't
it-
have 2 acres to
We
set back
take the
house.
point.
You know what
We
I mean?
take the
That's-
point. Thank you for pointing that out again. But if you don't have anything else, Jameson, I'd really like to move on. We've got a couple of other things. It's almost 6:30 and
Okay,
I
wow.
think that
Okay.
we're,
With this alone?
did you, feeling okay? We'll send you a, hello.
Hold on, sorry, there's.
This is just to remove the generator, but it says in the survey, it's proposed, because everything in the survey is taken from the plans of architect Michael Field, last dated 9/15/22. So the survey reflects plans from September.
Oh, dear me. Well, I feel like there's a lot of administrative stuff that has
What
to
did
be
you say?
cleaned up here.
Did the plans
Right on the front table.
change after September?
Well, they
I can't remember
submitted
now.
a new plan with removed the generator, but what he's saying is that it's referring to the
Plans.
wrong set. Yeah.
Okay, at some point though, this is stamped and sealed by a surveyor. This
No,
is
I
not
get it.
me.
I get it.
So this
Yeah,
is someone
yeah.
else's,
Right. But we're just trying to,
professional license on the
I
line.
understand, but you know too, that we're just trying to keep everything consistent. And, okay, so.
Survey needs to reflect what the plans are.
Yes, I recognize that. Thank you, council. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Jameson, thank you.
Thank you guys for your
We'll
time.
see you next time.
Yeah.
All right, we are on
Mike,
to,
can you do me a favor? And I'm not trying to nudge.
not at all.
If you were to poll the board, are we 5 no's?
Yeah.
I think it
Yes.
would be.
As we presented it tonight. I just need to be able to tell.
Do you want me to poll the board? Is that advisable?
We just do it.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah,
vote.
A polling the board is not a vote,
yes.
but it gives you the
I need the
um,
urgency.
information that you need
Okay.
to advise your client. Okay, this is just a poll. Diane?
No, I wouldn't. approve it.
Okay.
I'm not
Esperanza?
in favor.
No.
And Frank?
I'm not in favor, and I just want to add that I do think not enough effort has been made to reduce the massing. of
Okay,
the
all right,
cameras.
thank you.
Okay.
All right, and I feel the same way. So it's a
got it.
unanimous rejection.
Thank
I'm,
I don't wanna say thank you so much for that, but thank you.
I understand. Okay, it's not a vote. Again, and not a vote. Just to,
So I will be back. I will make
Wins.
sure I have as many of hopefully the proposed changes and
Okay.
also all of those.
and we'll give you as detailed a follow-up letter as we can provide. We've been trying to,
I think that numbers are, I mean, it's interesting in all
Yes.
these comparisons that you have made and Esperanza had made. It's the visual
It
impact.
is really,
of the house.
ultimately, that's
I
what it
don't
is.
care what the numbers
Yeah.
are.
I'm just trying,
okay.
I try to deal with the numbers because that's what we are dealing with the code and what is allowed or not allowed. But I think for me, it's a visual,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, maybe I'll get some more angles on the rendering too.
ceiling heights.
And the ceiling heights, I got it.
I
All right,
think
good night,
that's your
everyone. Thank
key.
you.
Yeah, all right, thanks, Jameson. Okay, issuance of certificates of occupancy, M&T Bank, ATM, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-1-2. Diane, this is you.
Yes, there are two C of Os, both for this bank at Spring Close Highway on Montauk Highway. That's become an M&T bank. The first one is for the,
I have
one is for the
Fourth Road.
signs and one is for the kiosk. Anyway, they have, as they have throughout this process, they
Okay,
have
yes, thank you.
complied with everything we have asked. And the existing, I have pictures.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That worked out.
Much better,
Oh,
much
yeah.
better.
Yeah, yeah.
Very,
It looks
very
terrific. It's
subdued.
clean. It's very, quite discreet. I think I couldn't be nicer.
Yep, good. Great.
So I would make a motion that our
where's
staff
my-
contact the building department that this is ready for a C of O.
Anybody have any questions? We all go with that? Okay, may I have a second,
Second.
please? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, so that's passed and carried. And next up is M&T Bank for signs. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-1-2, which is the same property. Diane again.
Yeah, the same
please.
property. Now we're talking about the sign and the signage on the
Nice.
front. They're all quite discreet and exactly as we resolved.
How refreshing. That's wonderful.
Nice.
Okay. Would you
So,
like to make a
I think
motion?
all's in perfect order and that I make a motion that that our staff contact the building department, that it's ready for a C of O.
Okay, great. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we're on to resolutions. 92 South Euclid Avenue modification, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-49-1-15. SHM Star Island LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-6-4-9. Ron Franklin, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-200-3-40.1. Bruce Saber, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-91-1-19.14. And Henry Drucker, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-6-11.5. Okay, so those have all been signed and I thank you all. I thank this board, so hardworking. You guys really are inspiring. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all right.